So we came close to finishing the 4th chapter of Taanit. And we were talking about the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av, the breaking of the walls of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. And the Mishnah explains that these 2 dates, the 17th of Tammuz and 9th of Av, are in some ways, they are days on which we recall the tragedies in our history. The 17th of Tammuz, the tablets were broken. On the 9th of Av, the people took fright and decided they didn't have the courage to go into the land. So that's the history, the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. And of course, the tractate cannot end on those sad histories. The rabbis don't like to end on a sad note. And so the last Mishnah in the tractate, the 8th Mishnah in the 4th chapter, in some way exorcises, sends away those feelings. And the chapter, the Mishnah begins, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Lo hayu yamim tovim Yisrael kachamisha asar ba'av uchayom haKippurim. There were no days of joy in Israel greater than the 15th of Av and Yom HaKippurim, Yom Kippur. And we see this remark with a certain amount of surprise, because we don't feel today that the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur are great holidays, great days we celebrate. And yet we'll see, if we examine the activities of those days, we'll see that they do indeed relate back to the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. In other words, these days are, if you like, the antidotes, the cures for the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. And we'll see, I brought you a little table on the source sheet, just outlining what happens on Yom Kippur and the 15th of Av. Yom Kippur on the right, 15th of Av on the left. And maybe we'll start with Yom Kippur, because we're more familiar there. And of course, we know that Yom Kippur is a day of forgiveness of sins, but we don't often go through the calendar and recognize that is the day when the second tablets were given. So the first tablets were smashed on the 17th of Tammuz, and that kicks off, if you like, the summer of fasts. But the second tablets are given on Yom Kippur. After the 17th of Tammuz, Moshe prays for 40 days till the 1st of Elul, and he goes up the mountain. He's up the mountain all of Elul, and then he comes down on the 10th of Tishri with the second Luchot. That's what Yom Kippur represents. It represents a second chance. Second Luchot, second chance, new beginnings. And we'll see indeed that the 15th of Av also represents in some way new beginnings, but attached, just as Yom Kippur is attached to the 17th of Tammuz, the 15th of Av is attached to the 9th of Av. And the Gemara, the Jerusalem Talmud, explains to us that is the day when the generation of the desert realized that the 40 years had passed. So on the 9th of Av, they're sentenced to 40 years wandering in the desert. And every year on the 9th of Av, Moshe announces to the people, we can actually look at this inside in the Jerusalem Talmud. Why the 15th of Av? Rabbi Yaakov Bar Acha says in the name of Rabbi Yassa, it's a good time to cut wood. And of course, we had the wood cuttings at the end of the towards the end of the 4th chapter, because any wood cut on this day doesn't develop worms. So, okay, that's one reason why the 15th of Av is a holiday. But then Rabbi Yabun said, the digging stopped on it. The digging stopped. So every day, every year on the eve of the 9th of Av, Moshe proclaims in the encampment, go out and dig. Go out and dig. And they went out and they dug graves for themselves, and they slept in their graves. This is the Jerusalem Talmud now. And in the morning, they'd get up and they'd find themselves missing 15,000 or so, because over 38 years, they're going to lose 600,000. So we're only counting, by the way, I mean, this is the arithmetic of the Mishnah only counts the men. Don't take this literally. So they'd go to bed in their graves, they'd wake up and they'd find that some people didn't wake up. And in the last year they did that, they got up. They got up and they found themselves whole. And they said, no one had died, right? And they can't understand why no one had died. And they said, look, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe because they're on a lunar calendar, right? They depend on seeing the new moon. Maybe we didn't get the date of the new moon right. So maybe we made a mistake. So they do the same thing again the following night on the 10th and on the 11th and on the 12th and on the 13th and the 14th. And they do it on the 15th. And then they see that the moon was full. When it's you might not know the date in the first couple of weeks of the month, but you know what a full moon is. So you know that's the 15th. You know they passed the 9th of Av, and they said to themselves, Domeh shebitel hakadosh baruch hu ota hagzera kasha me'aleinu. Since the moon was full, they said, it seems that the Holy Ones nullified this hard judgment against us. And they got up and they declared a holiday. That holiday is the 15th of Av, halfway through the month of Av, a week after the 9th of Av, when they realized that people weren't dying anymore. That's the 15th of Av. But of course, it's not only it's not the only thing that happened on the 15th of Av. The Gemara in the Babylonian Talmud, explains that intermarriage between tribes was allowed originally in order not to disturb the tribal allocation of land. Intermarriage was not allowed. There's a feud with Benjamin, which is resolved. Other tribes actually refused to intermarry with Benjamin for a while. King Jeroboam originally puts guards on the road to Jerusalem to stop Israel going out for festivals, because he's made his own altar at, I think, Dan or Shiloh. And then he stops. It's the end of the wood cutting for the temple, according to the Bavli, or the best time for wood cutting, according to the Jerusalem Talmud, as we just read. And the dead of Beitar were allowed to be buried. This is also closure for the 9th of Av. Remember, Beitar was taken on the 9th of Av. The siege of Beitar, the destruction of Beitar, really represents the final act in the Roman destruction of Jewish life in the land of Israel. And the Romans did not allow the dead to be buried. They let the dead lay in the fields for years. But the 15th of Av was the date when the dead were allowed to be buried. So all of these happened on the 15th of Av. So now we can kind of understand Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel when he says there were no days of joy greater than the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. These are days of turning over a new leaf, days of new beginnings. And what are we going to do on that day? Well, we're going to turn over a leaf. We're going to make a new beginning. We're going to get married. Let's read more in the Mishnah. Shebahen b'nei Yerushalayim yotzin bichlei lavan shulin. The people of Jerusalem would go out in borrowed white garments. Borrowed. Why borrowed? In order not to embarrass anyone who didn't have one. All these garments required immersion because you don't know who you're borrowing them from. And the daughters of Jerusalem would go out and they dance in the vineyards. What do they say? What do they say? Young man, lift up your eyes and see what you choose for yourself. Don't set your eye on beauty. Look on the family. And now we're going to quote from Proverbs, Sheker hachen vehevel hayofi. Grace is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that fears the Lord is praised. And we're going to say, Tanulami priyadeha vihaluha basharim maseha. Give her of the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. When you choose a wife, you don't choose someone who looks beautiful. You choose someone whose works praise her in the gates and who is Yirat Adonai, Yirat Hashem. And similarly, V'chenu Omer, Tse'ena Ura'ena, now we're in Shir HaShirim, we're in Song of Songs. Tse'ena Ura'ena, but not Sion, but Melech Shlomo. O maidens, O daughters of Zion, go forth and gaze on King Solomon. Ba'atara she'itra lo imo v'yom chatunato v'yom simcha libo. On the day, go forth and look at him wearing the crown that his mother gave him on his wedding day, on the day of the gladness of his heart. V'yom chatunato zo matan Torah. On his wedding day, this is the giving of the Torah. So we're back to the first and the second luchot. Uvayom simchat libo ze binyan beit hamikdash. This is the building of the temple. We're back to the ninth of Av. Yeah, we're still playing with the breaking of the tablets in the ninth of Av. Yehirat son shibane bimhera v'yameinu. May it be your will, may be his will that it should be rebuilt speedily in our days. That is the end of the tractate of Taanit. The tractate of fasting ends with weddings and marriages and hope that the temple is going to be rebuilt speedily in our days. Hadran alach Masechet Taanit, the Hadrach alam will return to you, tractate Taanit, and you will return to us. Da'atan alach Masechet Taanit ve'da'atach alan. Our mind is on you, tractate Taanit, and your mind is on us. Lo nit neshay minach Masechet Taanit ve'lo tit neshay minam. We will not forget you, tractate Taanit, and you will not forget us. Lo ba'alma de hadain ve'lo ba'alma de ati. Not in this world and not in the next world.